Today we're going to talk about composition patterns and how they can help you to organize your writing, especially if you're uncomfortable. This can really help a lot. And in some ways, these are the kind of things that you can keep in your back pocket forever. They help with both paragraphs and essays in some cases, but they're also very easy to memorize. So writing only does two things. It goes from the general to the specific, or the specific to general. Those are the only two choices you have. So if you think about it this way, sometimes you'll talk about how dogs are great pets and every toddler should have a dog, and that's your big idea. That's your general idea. And then you move into the specifics. You talk about why. Children that have dogs have less allergies. They learned empathy. Do you see how that moves from general to specific? Now, specific to general, it's the same kind of thing where you would talk about every child needs a dog there, and then you'd go into the reasons why, or every child needs a pet, and then you go into reasons why, and then you'd come to the conclusion that the dog is the best pet. So you'd move from the specific instances of how they could benefit to, hey, get a dog, which would be the big general idea. So one of the patterns that helps you kind of organize these ideas, this moving from specific to general or general to specific, is this idea of TRIAC. Now this is an acronym, so we'll go through what it means, but it's a systematic way to understand and organize this movement from the general to specific or specific to general. And the cool thing about it is you can use it within paragraphs, or you can use it for your whole essay. You can pattern out your essay just using these elements, because each letter stands for a part of the essay. The T is your theme or your topic or your thesis. That's your big idea, your general idea. The R is a restatement or a restriction or a refinement. The I is an illustration or an example. This is your support. The A is analysis. That's when you talk about how your support is important. And then C is your conclusion or your closure. Now, what you need to think about is how these work in both your larger essay or within your paragraphs. So, a thesis, a topic, or a theme, they say what the essay is about. It'll talk about the topic that the essay addresses, like your thesis, or what you're going to argue or claim. Now, this may only be a sentence or two in terms of your thesis statement. It's rarely longer than a paragraph. The R is just a restatement or a restriction or a refinement. You're showing your theme or your thesis in a sharper, more particular way. And basically, you're restating it. So the transitional phrases you often can use is that is, or in other words. And this is usually just a sentence or two in your essay as well to clarify things for your audience. The I is your illustrations or your examples. This is, again, your support. Every idea has to be supported. Now, in this day and age, we seem to think opinions are great. No, in academia, you have to have support. Now, if you're writing a personal essay, your support will be your personal experience. If you are writing a research paper, your support will come either from the textbook or from EBSCOhost or another academic source. But this is what you do. You give examples. You illustrate where you see your thesis. So the transitional phrases here would be for instance or for example. And this is what makes your writing convincing and also interesting. The analysis shows readers how to understand your support, what it means to your thesis. You make those logical interpretations about causes and effects or intentions and actions, how your support supports your thesis, really. So your transitional phrases are going to be things like since, therefore, because, however, nevertheless. And you're going to be pointing these out to your audience, like this is what I want you to see. For the C in TRIAC, it's your conclusion or your closure. Now this can happen anywhere in your essay. You make several conclusions within an essay. It's not just at the end. So what you think about here is how you're drawing together several threads of logic, how you're pulling things together and showing how you got from A to Z, how you got from the general to the specific, and it's been proven. So your transitional phrases are in conclusion or thus, And again, they can appear more than once, and they don't have to be just at the end. So the cool thing about TRIAC is that, we just went through the T, R, I, A, and C, but what you need to know about it is that these are like ingredients. They don't need to come in any sort of order as long as they are put in the recipe. So you can change up how you put them in there. For example, you could start with an illustration. Going back to our silly dog thing, a two-year-old Johnny plays, bounces through the yard with his dog Maggie, and Maggie guards, whatever. You give an illustration of how a dog is a good thing to have around a 2-year-old kid. So that would be your illustration or example that would begin your paragraph. Then you would analyze and explain your illustration and how it works and why it works. So you could say, clearly, Johnny is learning empathy by being around the dogs. He's learning how not to hurt another animal or whatever, blah, blah, blah. So finally, then you can say, every 2-year-old needs a dog. That could be your thesis. Okay, now let me tell you, that's a really bad thesis, but I wanted you to kind of just have an idea. And then finally, you'd conclude with what you believe and how it should be clear to your readers. Okay? So this is great because you can use it both in your paragraphs and in your essays as a whole. Now this one excites people. I don't understand why. I'm just kidding. This is a very easy one for college students to remember. It's beer. If you look at this as a pattern for paragraphs, it's really a fantastic way because it forces you to put your topic sentence where your topic sentence should go. That's your belief. Then you explain, you give an example, and you offer relevance. Do you understand? This is the same exact thing that we just talked about. It's just in a different, more easy to remember mnemonic. So think about beer if you're having trouble getting those topic sentences or staying on focus. But not actual beer, but the acronym of beer. So belief, explanation, example, and relevance. So your belief is your thesis. In your paragraphs, it's your topic sentence. When you explain, it's the who, what, when, where, why, and how. That's your reporter questions. You explain why it's important. What details does your audience need to get what you're saying? And ask those questions to yourself under the explain. Just think, who, what, when, where, why, and how. Why is this important? Why do my audience need this information? The other E is example. This is when you give me the show me, don't tell me. This can be from your text, from your experience, if you're doing a personal essay, from a case study, or from literature reviews, if you're doing a literature review, it would be from your research. It's like law. You prove it. That's your example. See, he was here at this point, and this is what he did. Just think about it like that. Finally, the relevance. Show why it's important to your point, and then bring that back to your thesis. This will always keep you on track. Okay, one more, and this is for people who don't drink and just like sugar. So, you can use Oreo. Oreo is the same thing. It's just another pattern. They all do the same thing. It's just easier for you to remember one that you like. So Oreo is opinion. That's when you tell how you feel, or you give your topic. Your reasons. Those are the reasons or information to support. Follow that with your examples, and then go back with your opinion again, restated in light of the evidence above it. Oreo. There you go. So thinking about some of these, we've got TRIAC, we have beer, we have Oreo. And in addition, I posted the schematic for you. These are patterns that if you feel stressed about writing, you need to choose one and use. And I guarantee it will take a lot of the pressure off because you have an analytical way to look at writing. Writing isn't some sort of like subjective thing that's ungradable and there's no way to do it right. There are patterns, and there are academic patterns that you need to use in college. So hopefully these will help you. If you need any more information on them, just shoot me a little email and I'll put some more info up for the class. Have a good one.